Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Alrighty, so I'm going to share my presentation today of my time management and concentration. All right, so starting off, our final project here today, the time management concentration project. So I have the watch for time management to make sure staying on task for this opening. And then I have an overview. So to start off, I'm going to be talking about preparation and ways that we can prepare to make sure that we are organized and that we're ready to go, and that we're using our time as wisely as we can. And then we're going to talk about how to concentrate and some tactics and ways that we can concentrate better while we're doing schoolwork, any type of work, really. These can help us and aid us in that. And then I would love to talk about overcoming internal distractions. Internal distractions can be huge for helping us, well, not helping us, the contrary, actually, to not accomplish the things that we have to do because we get distracted with daydreaming, or maybe we're just thinking about all of our tasks that we need to do. And so we can't even focus on the one that we're doing. We're going to take some time to talk about that. If that feels like something you've experienced before, you can look forward to that slide. I know I did when we learned about it. Then I'm going to talk about overcoming external distractions, and that'll be more outside of the mindings that kind of stop us or barriers in our studying. Then we're going to talk a little bit about memory and how we can improve our memory, and ways that we can memorize better. We're also going to spend some time talking about strategic learning and what those are. We'll get into that, but how to learn strategically, and then learning styles. And then lastly, our goal. We're going to be talking about what we want. What is our goal of all of this? Because we have all these steps, right? But what is the goal? And we're going to get into that later. But let's start off with preparation. So, first off, you've got to prepare to focus and to be ready to do the tasks that you need to do. I know for me, one way that I definitely have not prepared correctly was, here's like a prime example. Okay. I ate a really unhealthy dinner and I ate way more than I should have. And I kept eating. And then I was craving ice cream. So then I went and got some ice cream. And at this point, it was already 11:30. And then my cousin asked me if we wanted to watch a movie, even though I knew I needed to study early the next morning. I decided to watch that movie. So now I've already been up since 1 a.m. and I've eaten a bunch of sugar right before bed. And I'm just full of stuff that my body does not need and will not be beneficial to help me. Now, these are two ways that I've violated preparing mentally and physically. I was not eating foods that will help my brain prepare. I definitely didn't work out. And I was eating a lot of junk, and I got horrible sleep, getting to bed at 1 a.m. and then still needing to get up early to study. Those are not great ways to prepare. A better way would look like, hey, I said no to my cousin, sorry. I've got a busy day tomorrow, so I'm not going to be able to do that. I would have made a healthy dinner, knowing that I needed my brain to be there for me tomorrow to function. And I would have said no to the ice cream. I would have planned a day that I could have done that some other time, which would also be part of scheduling, which is important. So those are some great ways that we can prepare to get the 8 hours of sleep. One saying I love within the church is early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And that's a promise that we have. If we live by it, we can see for ourselves the blessings that can come. So next we're going to talk about concentration. I have this picture of, look at that guy, how concentrated he is on that ball. Lots of time in sports, we say, keep your eye on the ball, right? You don't want to look, close your eyes because you're scared of the ball, or look at what, if you're holding a bat or whatever your sport you're playing, you don't want to look somewhere else. You need to be focused on the ball. And so lots of times, well, what is the ball in our life? That can mean a lot of different things. But for us in this period, at least for me in this period of time in my life, it's usually studying and schoolwork. And it can become hard to keep your eyes on the ball, to stay focused on school. It really can. And so we have some tools here that we can use, some tactics of ways that we can better keep our eyes on the ball. So establishing a purpose. So first, you need to identify what is the ball, right? What is that? It's schoolwork. It's this assignment that I have. So I need to first identify and focus in. Okay. Then deciding on what to look for before you begin reading. So one way that you can practice this is one thing that I've done, is often it helps to look at the study guide and see kind of what, or maybe like a question, if there's going to be a questionnaire at the end of what you're going to be studying for the day, it is helpful to see and observe, okay, so these are the things that I'm going to be getting asked. So let's go into this study and this reading specifically looking for these things so I can spend my time on the most important things. Or if you just have a general idea of what your topic is, you can go into and just be like, hey, I need to focus on these things and specific. This is what I'm going to look for. And then it becomes a search. There's a total difference between if you've ever, I don't know, if you've ever just read the scriptures, right, in your scripture studies, and you're just reading the Book of Mormon and just to read because you need to read every day, versus when there's a topic your friend asks you about. Say your friend asks you, a non-member asks you about a topic, and you're like, I want to help them find this answer. And so you dig in the scriptures, and that search automatically makes it more intriguing. It helps you zone in on the ball and focus. Another tactic we have is to be here now. I love to practice this, especially just like being very vocal about my intentions. Kind of sometimes helps me like, no, like even if you're getting distracted, say, no, I'm not going to spend time on that. Like out loud is helpful. But really, when you find yourself getting distracted, say vocally, no, I need to be here now. I need to be in the moment right here because we have time to get to those things later, but we need to be where we need to be when we need to be there. And also you can pause and ask yourself questions out loud to help you refocus in the moment, or you can try and explain what you just read out loud. And that will really help you to kind of stay where you're at in the reading. Combining physical and mental. I'm sure you've written down notes before. That is one way to practice this. Taking notes is a way to combine your physical and active learning. I saw someone the other day actually just scribbles while they read, and they said that that really helps them. And for me, I like to go on walks while I study. That really helps me to just stay like energized or stand if I need to. That helps a lot. Maximize your energy level. This one's huge. You need to do your tasks that are most draining when you have the most energy to donate to those draining tasks, right? So if I had a quiz that I needed to study for biology, and I know that my brain has the most energy right after I wake up, it'd probably not be smart to save all my biology till it before I go to bed, right? It'd probably be better to save like an assignment from my marriage class because I just have to read a little bit and then just fill in some blanks, right? That would probably make more sense to save something that doesn't require as much memorization, as much thinking through. So I would want to save my biology studying for the morning, and then I would save my marriage class assignment for the evening. And then it's super important to reward yourself. Um, I found this honestly all throughout life. When you have something to look forward to, the time passes by quicker, and the time that you have is more filled with joy because you're excited for something, you're happy for something to come. And when we're happy, when we're in more in an excited state, we just process better. Our minds process better. We can understand better. We can work harder. And so reward yourself. And that can look like many different things. It can be, I know I'm going to take a walk in 30 minutes, and that's a reward that you could have. There's lots of different ways to reward yourself. You could say, I'm going to let myself watch my show tonight if I finish these three assignments or something like that. But just a way to get yourself to push yourself and to get excited for something too. Alrighty. So next we're going to be talking about, internal distractions. So internal distractions inside the brain, right? That can be so many different things. It can totally be daydreaming. That's my hugest one. I love to just daydream and to think about different things to let my mind just drift. That's a huge internal distraction for me, and it is for a lot of people. But I found this quote that I really liked by William James. It says, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So I don't know about you, but I constantly found myself stressed because here I am trying to study, but I'm stressed and anxious that I'm not going to do good enough on this test. And so I'm wasting the time of studying that I have here that I could be studying, being anxious that I'm not going to know enough. And so it just wastes that time. And so I really like this quote because if I had the strength and the ability to choose the thought of, no, I need to be here and study over, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do good enough, then that is a weapon that I can use in my studying and my skills. So I really thought that was cool. But here are some ways that we can overcome these internal distractions. This one I was so grateful to learn about in this class because I've used it so far and it has been huge. Like I said, my mind constantly wanders. And so to have a worry pad, just something when something comes to your mind, like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do that. Oh, I needed to text them. Oh, I need to do that. I need to do that, right? You just try and write it down. And then it's off your mind. You know that it's not going to get forgotten again because you have it on paper physically right by you that you can look at right after you're done studying. You can just let it clear your mind. So your mind can be clear and get back to what you're focused on. That one's been huge. I was so grateful to learn that throughout this class. Also meditation. This is something still I'm working on applying. I haven't been super good about it, but my whole life I've heard about how good meditation is for you. Um, and it's true to really clear your mind and to let it just like breathe. There's been times, even though it's not been often or common throughout my life, where I have meditated, and it really has helped decrease anxiety, decrease stress, and it allows me to just be more in the moment because it takes it like I feel like it just kind of brings you closer to God. And once you feel the spirit, that always helps you kind of get a reality check like, hey, God's literally an all being who created this place. I'm pretty sure I'll be fine with this exam because he's watching over me. To just meditate and to just like remember this is not the world, right? Like the world does not revolve around this exam. There's so much more to life. There's so much more things that are make you happy. There's so many more things that have helped you to grow and to just focus on other things that don't all have to do with this exam to let yourself get outside of that is huge. Or just not even think about anything and to let your mind just be blank. It's hard, impossible, but you can do it. You can clear your mind of stressful things. And then take breaks. Those breaks are huge. I actually take breaks every hour and I go on a 10-minute walk if I'm not already walking while I study. And that is huge for me. That's kind of my reward. And because I love walking. And also, it's just, I don't know, sometimes it can feel intimidating when like, I have 5 hours of study, right? And that can be super intimidating. But when you say I have 5 hours and then I get to go on a walk and listen to some music to take a break, it's not so bad to break it down into smaller tasks and to let your mind chill for a minute, do something you love, just totally let it go, let it out, like totally forget about it and let yourself just enjoy the moment, your favorite song, right? And to go on a walk and to get some fresh air, that's huge and super helpful for overcoming internal distractions. Next, we're going to talk about external distractions. So these have to do with things outside of your mind, like your environment. So you need to make sure that the space where you're at, this is like unreal to me how true it is. This is not only applicable to when I was doing my schoolwork, but also on my mission. When my desk was a mess, my scripture study or my studying just automatically plummets. It's awful. It's just so much harder to focus. I have so many distractions. And even if you're not even getting distracted, I swear there's just a sense of being in a clean environment versus a dirty that just changes the way that you can absorb information from personal experience. I swear it does. So that one's huge. Eliminating noise is huge. And we're going to talk a little bit more about music because music and noise, I want to talk about those two separately, but eliminating noise is huge when you're studying. If there's a baby crying, it's important to get out of that space and to be in a place where you can be in a quiet place where you can focus. Or conversations, that's huge for me. When my family has interesting conversations, I love to listen. But it's super hard because I know that I need to just focus on where I'm at. So sometimes I need like, okay, guys, I need to shut the door. Like keep doing what you're doing, but don't be offended. I need to shut my door. Um, Visual distractions, that can be what's going on outside, or it could also just be pictures. If you have too many pictures up on your wall, that could be distracting you. That could be important to make sure that you don't have too much going on. As well as music. Music actually can be beneficial. I love listening to classical music when I study. It actually helps me and it enables me to do better. But if you're not like that, if you notice it's not enabling you, then don't. And music that's super upgoing and pop and like loud and has words and lyrics, especially if you're a person who likes to listen to the lyrics, it's probably not a good idea to have on while you're studying. But more instrumental, just to help you soothe your mind, and to kind of set like a study vibe is totally acceptable. And actually, if it helps you encouraged, it's definitely helped me. Okay, we're going to talk about memory. There's a scripture because we're told all the time throughout the scriptures from God, remember, remember. So I thought it was really fun to add this scripture, and I exhort you to remember these things. Even God wants us to remember. I mean, we're here to grow and to learn. And if we keep forgetting things, then we have to relearn things. But if we remember them, then we can move forward and progress. So, first off, the first steps we need to take to memorize is we need to be there. We need to be present, and that can be in class, that can be listening to your lecture, but to be listening and to be open and to be present, right? We need to go to class and we need to get the information correct the first time is super beneficial. If the information is incorrect, it can be hard to unlearn, but it's a lot easier to learn than to unlearn. So you need to ask questions. Like it says, make sure you understand. If you're not sure, then ask questions. Um, and really make sure that you understand and that you have it correct. And then I'm just going to talk about a few techniques, probably three out of these. First is recall, and I'm going to just talk about the ones that I've used personally and have been the most beneficial to me. And that's why I'm choosing these three. So, recall. So once I have learned a topic, before I just keep letting the hour lecture play, once we've moved on to another topic, I hurry and pause and I write down everything that I remember, I recall, or I try and reteach it right then. That's like recall, like re-grab everything that you remember from what you just learned. And you want to do that right after, and you also want to do that a couple hours later because recall is seriously one of the greatest ways that you can learn. Because if you just go back and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch, you're never cementing or concreting that you know it. But when it comes from you and you're the source of that information, that's how you know that you've got it down, that you've got it memorized. Um, for me, acronyms, I really like acronyms. So if I'm learning to if I'm learning about a topic, I like to take the first letter of words and have it mean something, have it spell out something that is just more memorable for me. And it's really as well as I can think to describe it, but I know that that's been huge for me. And then, as well as it's almost part of this, but to make connections with background knowledge. So you can connect things that you know you need to remember with the most random things. Like, it doesn't even have to be make total sense. So here's an example. I worked at the airport, and so we had to memorize all of the codes, okay, to all the airports in the country and then a lot in the world too. So we need to have those memorized. And so ORD is Chicago. And I was like, okay, how can I remember that? And it was just super random. I think there was an Olivia Rodrigo song playing at the time. And so I just said, Olivia Ord, right? Rodrigo is in Chicago. And that worked for me. And I've never forgotten it. And so it's just tying random. So it doesn't even have to like apply or make total sense. But as long as it makes sense in your head, that's really all that matters. And for me, tying that background knowledge with something new completely changed the game. I've never forgotten that. And that I use that a lot actually. Um, and so now, let's talk about strategic learning. So, there's kind of three steps to strategically learn something. First, you have to have exposure to the topic, right? Because you'll never know it if you're not around it or even learn it. So, first, that's lectures. That's watching the lecture, that's rewatching it if you have a video, or going back and reading the book. It's just being exposed to the topic. You need to read it, see it, write it down, get exposed to it. Okay, then you're going to review. Like I talked about earlier, you want to review it right after and several hours after and days after as well if you can. But so you want to rewrite those, relook at them and review it. And then practice. So now you're going to practice teaching. That's the best way. You can do flashcards, those are helpful. You can do group studies, those can be helpful. I've also been to bad ones, but practice teaching because that's once again recall, right? You're seeing, do I know this? You're pulling it out of you and making sure that you have it down. So that's how we strategically learn is first to be exposed to the topic, to review the topic, and then to practice the topic. Now, we learned about some different learning styles, and some people assume that they are just only this one, or that um, they were born with this one and they can only do this one. This is how they need to learn. But really, we all have the ability to stretch ourselves and to learn in all these ways. We all have, because we've been to school and we've been to teachers who don't try and teach in a certain way. But basically, just a quick definition to what these learning types are is auditory. So you learn best when you hear things. So right now, for me, you're receiving auditory and visual training, right? I'm teaching you audibly, you're hearing this, and I'm also showing you my slideshow that I built. So this is also visual. It's not so much kinesthetic because I'm not there with you physically showing you or like giving you objects to touch or to experiment with or to work. And that's kinetic. I hope that's how you say it. But basically, it's hands-on. It's doing it for yourself. That is how you learn with that way. And then here's a video that I'm gonna leave the link in there for you to watch. It's like 14 minutes, so we're not gonna watch it in here. But this guy begins to talk about kind of like the myths that people have been taught growing up that they are only this one way of learning. It can only, and that's once going back to these learning types. It's going to discuss that I found really interesting. But overall, I think the main message that I learned from this is that everyone can learn to learn in new ways. And I think we're supposed to. I mean, that's all of God's plan for us is to grow and to stretch ourselves and to try new things. And so to do those things, to learn and to stretch yourself and to try and learn in new ways. And obviously, if you learn best in one way, that's great. But I think we've all had been forced to at times throughout our schooling years to learn in ways that maybe wouldn't have been our preferred way of learning, but we did it. So we know that it's possible. Um, so I talked about the goal, right? We have a goal. So we just went over all these strategic ways of how we can better focus, of how we can better um, retain knowledge, how we can better memorize. And that is referred to as, well, kind of like what are all these things building up to do is to get us to get to the goal, which is the flow, right? So the flow is what we want to experience. And the flow is when we have these clear goals that are attainable and when we have strong concentration and focus. So I'm sure you've experienced the flow. You've probably experienced the flow, whether it's a sport, whether it's learning, writing, reading especially. Have you ever read and kind of just been drifting and not really there versus when you're reading and you're like, I am in this scene. Like I'm here. I'm one of these characters because it just feels so real. Like you're reading a book and it feels like you're watching a movie because it's so clear. That's the flow. Or when you're playing a sport and you're just so in the game and you know how to communicate, like this, that, go here, go here. Like it's just like everyone's experienced the flow. And it's like honestly such an amazing feeling. You feel just on high. And so the flow unfortunately is not going to be with you 24/7 like the force. It's not there all the time. I'm sorry. But it when it's not there is the time when we need to push ourselves the most to keep working towards it. And how we work towards it is what we've just witnessed. What all these trainings were, what I've just taught you, these slides, we're trying to work towards the goal, the flow. We're building an environment where the flow can grow. So basically by helping our external focus be better. We are tilling up the ground, right? And then to turn off music, we're planting a seed. And then to meditate, we're giving it water. We're doing these things to get the flower to grow or the flow. We want to obtain that. And like we said, if we're going to keep using this analogy, at times your flower can die this cold temperature. And we don't want the flower to just die forever, right? It comes back. We will get the flow again. And we do that by not giving up because we are still learning, even if it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you've just been reading and studying and you're not getting anything. If you just keep working, I promise you, you are learning. And I actually experienced this over the last 2 weeks. I just felt like I just don't have it like I used to. I was doing so good all semester. I was just doing so amazing these 2 weeks. I'm just so not here mentally. I'm just not feeling it. And then I just kept going, kept working hard, and now feel like I'm back on it. And I'm having these full days of studying again where I feel like I 1 hour passed by, but I've been in the library all day studying. So that's the flow. That's what we're trying to obtain. I want you to think of a time where you've experienced the flow and then have that motivate you that you want to experience it again. And so that's why you're going to follow these things. And then lastly, I have an invitation for you. Um, there's so many more things that we've learned in this class that were super helpful for me, that were incredible. And so I kind of just made them into an invitation because we didn't really have enough time to teach because it's already getting pretty long. But I invite you to first make a calendar, okay? And once you have that calendar made, I invite you to create a study schedule for that calendar. Fill in your calendar of what times you need to be studying based off your work that you have to get in, based off your family things that you have to do, working out. You have so many things you have to do. So you need to really make time that you're scheduling your time to study so that you're even getting it in the first place. And we know that the general rule is 2 hours of studying for every hour you're in class. So try and use that rule to build your schedule, and then practice habit for formation. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. To really build these habits, keep doing them over and over, and practicing them, and then build a to-do list. So when you build this to-do list, don't just put the little minor things that you have to do every day, like brush my teeth, work out if you're consistent at that. If you're not, then that's a great thing to put on your to-do list. But just these little minor things can sometimes fill up our to-do list and kind of get distracting or demotivate us because how much there is. But just put things that you know actually need to get done. That way, when you do have these down times where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to scroll on my phone. You have a list of things that you need to get done that are there. Remember how we talked about sometimes it just goes off your head. Maybe it's you can't remember all these things that you have to do because you're not thinking about it, but you have that physical list reminding you to do it. And then I invite you to not procrastinate. And I know that by doing all the things that we've talked about in this slide, especially to-do lists can help because it doesn't give you time to procrastinate. If you always have things to do, then when it's time, like, oh, I'm going to procrastinate, no, go to your list. So I invite you to make a calendar, to create a study schedule on that calendar, start practicing formations, and pick what you want those habits to be. And you do that. Sorry, to get a little bit more in depth on how you can do that is when you so say you brush your teeth every day, right? Then say you want to build a habit of doing 10 push-ups after so that you can get a little bit more physical. Okay. Then you attach that habit onto brushing your teeth because it's easier to attach a habit to a habit you already have. So if I'm already brushing my teeth every single day, then I'm also just going to attach doing 10 push-ups. And then once that becomes a habit, then I'm also going to attach to open my scriptures for 10 minutes. And it's just linking these habits. So pick a habit, link it, put it underneath your schedule too, as a reminder when you're first starting off, so it helps. And then build that to-do list and do not procrastinate. And I know by doing these things that you will have a more rewarding educational experience or whatever it is that you're hoping to receive, to have better focus, to have better time management. I know that by following these things and doing these things that we've learned that were given to us by God, people that were called by God, I know that we can. And this is my training today. Thank you so much.